Hey, hey, Natsu here. Today I'm going to do a second thing for my for a 300 sub special, a 2 hour long video. This is going to be for my leveling deku. What if? So in the last part, he had well, Lucy left. Um, he went and got the ninth book, as well as getting the warp divine power, well, god power, by killing Matui. So, two got on his belt, and now the next kingdom is actually a lot further than the other ones. Like, he passed from a swamp to go to a lake and now to a desert. But this is because of the way well, a certain part of the island is made, which is actually because right now he's in the middle of the island, which, because of an extent, well, because of a huge amount of magic that was used a long time ago, basically climates in that place basically changed during battles. So it's literally, so there's literally 4 different zones just kind of all together. The first one that he passed through was the swamp, which became a swamp only around 400 years previously, while Deku is only in his 200 and wait, 223 years. Sorry, I had to pause. I'm going to pause again. Okay, yeah, so he's 223 and something for his age. So like I was saying, the swamp was biome was basically created by a huge, well, actually a wild magic that was used. Basically, it was an artifact that basically, um, there exist in this world many artifacts, as well as legendary weapons and stuff like that. The artifact that was used there is something called a wild magic dice, which actually can, well, can just appear. Well, how can I say this? Monsters normally only, well, don't loot anything. Like, okay, yeah, there's the meat, the bones, anything that they had on them or that they had eaten. But those dice can actually be found in, well, sometime when you kill a monster. Basically, the monster has a extremely small amount of chance if it had magic inside of it. So really not a lot of monsters because they need to be able to use magic. Well, not be able to use magic, but they need to have magic inside of them, basically. Which a lot of monsters do have, but just kind of because the way their body works is that naturally the magic kind of just flows through everything, is around everyone. Some monsters are able to use the magic inside of them. Those monsters are capable of actually, when killed, they have an 0.001% chance of basically completely turning into magic and transforming into the special artifact called Wild Magic Dice. This is the only artifact that you can basically find anywhere normally, because no other artifacts are basically or created by someone, or are found just in nature, basically left there. And since normally artifacts are almost unbreakable or are unbreakable, you can basically always find them back. Um, the dice, in comparison, since they can actually just appear from any monsters, they are a one-time use only. Um, the way they work is basically that it's a dice with 20 faces, but every second the faces switch to something else. Not a number, but an image. Each image is different. Basically, there is over 200,000, no, 20, there is over 20,000 different image. Each of these image has a different effect. Half of them are good, half of them are bad. What I mean by good is you get something, something is created, you get healing, you get teleported somewhere where there is treasures, or stuff like that. What I mean by bad is monsters, death traps, complete climate change that becomes almost permanent, and other things that can basically kill you if you're not prepared for it. So basically, those dice were used to create all four of the different climates. Right now, we only saw two, the swamp and the desert. Right now, he's going to the third one, which is actually a volcano. Well, a place with a massive amount of volcanoes. Basically, the kingdom is built with a protective force field over it, and under it as well. Basically, they're in a bubble that's basically kind of floating in the middle of that place. It's not actually floating, it's more because there is pillars and stuff like that, basically grabbing all around in the ground, on mountains, on volcanoes, and blah 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 to basically hold the city up. If those were to break, the entire city would get to the ground. So the force fields are basically capable of pushing off any lava, no matter how hot it is or how much weight there is in it. Living being can pass through it easily, except monsters that basically cannot pass through it. So, humans, demi-humans, beastmen, elves, fishmen, mermaid, and other stuff like that, demon, angels, and blah blah blah, can basically enter. Because yes, there are angels and demons. There are a lot of them, but right now it's kind of not everywhere. Like, I would say Deku in the entire everywhere that he went for now only met around, well, would have passed next to 4 demons and probably just like 7 angels. Reason for that is that they are classed as a superior species. And for the, I think, 5 or 6 weakest continents. Wait, just want to go make sure about this. Okay, yeah, so like I was saying, the six lowest continents, there's not really a lot of them on them. At some point, there is a continent that will actually have only those species mostly, and they are in a constant war, but you will see why later. Because basically, for the first 4 continents, the reason he goes from weakest to strongest in those is actually because they are um, the 4 closest continents to one another, and they basically kind of do a line that's almost straight, basically. So he can just literally pass from the weakest to the fourth weakest. But after that, they're going to start going in shambles a bit. Basically, pass from the fourth to the ninth to the fifth to the 20th. Basically, going like that. So, for now, the 4 first continents are going to be in order, but that's basically it. So, yeah. Basically, the next place that is going is a Lava Kingdom, and the entire way there basically takes over a month, even on a horse. Basically, for this one, you'd be better walking because it takes less time, because the terrains are almost impossible to actually go with a horse, because you have to pass through a desert. After that, you have a forest, basically like an oasis in the middle of it, that if you go around it, you basically take twice the time that you take if you pass through the middle of it. But with horse, it's impossible to go through it because of basically the way the plants are made. There are monsters. There's very little water inside of it. In the desert as well, but at least you can give them water. Mostly deku with water spells, but yeah. So after that, there is a part of the desert where there is a lot of, um, well, basically you have like one place where the sand goes down, one other place where it goes up a lot, then another place where it basically makes like a ravine a bit, and basically like that, which is untravelable with a horse because it's basic because the sand doesn't give them enough footing, and since the sand goes down all the ways when you go up or that you're going down, the horse would keep falling, so you can literally not even go by that way. After another bit, you get to a river that the only thing that's really visible about this river is that, well, not visible, but there's no fish in it, there's no plants, because the water is boiling hot in this river. And the river is, firstly, deep, and secondly, to go from one side to the other, it's about 100 meters. You could almost call it a lake, but it's not a lake because literally the water just continues and it moves fast. Basically, there's a lot of currents in it. So a horse can literally not even go close to that. The reason the water is so hot is actually because just after that river, you get to the lava zone, well, volcano biome, which basically from that point to the kingdom, the heat is impossibly high. Um, you can literally not even find any drop of water in the place because of the heat. Um, Toxic gas are everywhere because of the volcanoes. And from the river to the kingdom, that just takes a week by itself in that heat. Deku could pass if he decided to go Dragon Force or use everything that he has in his power to just go straight through it and basically get to the other side of the entire place in about a week and get to the other kingdom. But he doesn't do that really. He trains at the same time. He already was training by simply walking everywhere and stuff like that, but now he also has a goal to do. Kill the first god, the strongest one, as well as needing to find 12, well, all of the other requirements out of the 12 to basically get back to his world. Keep in mind that he doesn't know yet that time in his world passes 100, um, well, basically 1 day in the My Hero Academia world is 100 years in our, well, in his new world. So he doesn't know that, and the only thing he wants is to go back to his house. Well, to his world. No matter how far it is in the future. He just wants to get back there. So Deku basically decides that he's going to start going. And reason this video will take 2 hours is not because of the travel time, it's actually because of something that's going to happen in 2 of the locations. He knows about around 8 temples, well, 8 other temples on the continent, as well as the one outside of the continent that will need to go to get the 21st book. He knows there is more, though, which later he will actually find a way to know exactly where every temple is, but for now, he doesn't know that. But he will find one a bit later in this part. So, Deku basically starts going, before leaving the Desert Kingdom. He actually went to look for if he could actually get new bracelets. He was looking around for a forge or places where they can enchant stuff. Basically, to or let him create them himself, or for them to make him that would be stronger than what he has right now. Which he finds one of the, well, he finds a forge, um, a Well, basically, he finds a spot where there is a forge, um, jewelry store, enchantment place, a small library that basically has, well, not really library, but it's a place where you can go buy a page that's basically have an enchantment on it that you can basically infuse a weapon with it by going to the forge. And basically how they do it is that the page that you give them, they create the weapon to go with it. They know exactly what it needs to be thanks to the page. Then they give the person back the weapon and the page, and then he goes to an enchanter where he gives the weapon and the page, and they basically, well, the page in itself has the enchantment in it. It is just not active. So what they do is basically infuse the magic of the page directly in the weapon, which activates the enchantment firstly, and destroys the page completely. If you actually have the capacity to do that, you don't need to go to any of these places, or if you already have the capacity to enchant yourself something, like create an enchantment, like Deku can do. The problem is that some enchantments are specials. Like, to create an enchantment, he needs to know the type of, well, because the way it works for an enchantment, you need to make a circle, and then it is signs inside of it, writing in a specific language around it. I'm going to go try and see if I can find an example of that. Be right back. Basically, something in that way. Like, you need to know the exact form of it. You cannot put anything in it, basically, no matter what you want. You cannot just write something that doesn't translate to anything and hope that it will work. When you do that, yes, you can find a way to create new ones, but most of the time they basically create an explosion that is bigger the more magic you use to create it. Because the way they are created is actually with special pens, or by literally you putting, well, the pens firstly use your magic to basically create the circle, or if you're skilled enough, like Deku can do, you can do the circle with your own finger. The thing is that it takes more magic, but takes less time. So, yeah, he can do stuff like that to create enchantment. Like, he enchanted his own weapon that can be a sword or a spear, so yeah. But he doesn't know the enchantment for aura blocking items, basically. So he went to the enchantment store to see if he can find any, since he only needs to see it to basically learn it. And he basically asked for those types of enchantments, because if he knows how the enchantment looked like, that he can actually increase it. The way you increase an enchantment is actually by creating multiple of the circle, by making it bigger, or, or by increasing the magic inside of it. You can also do all of them at once to basically make it a lot stronger, but let's say um, Deku wants to put a regen on a weapon, so He does it normally with a diameter of around um, 30 centimeter, not 30, 20 centimeter in diameter. That's basically a normal type. There is also a way to increase the strength by actually increasing, well, by adding um, things to the drawing inside of the circle, but most of those are hard to find. Um, or you can combine different circles and hope to create something new, or a mix of enchantment, because once a weapon has been enchanted once, it's enchanted. You cannot enchant it again. So to actually create a weapon like what he has, what you need is to... Okay, sorry, I had to pause. Like I was saying, to create a weapon like he has on his back, he needs or to put multiple page at once on the weapon and infuse them all at once, or to combine the drawings and basically hope that they work together. Um, there's less chance of failure by putting multiple circles on it at different places and infusing all of them at once than creating a new circle by combining multiple others and infusing. The thing is that when you create a new circle by adding multiple together, the enchantments get stronger and the weapon as well. So you kind of get the point. The the better you are creating them, basically, the stronger you can make them. So Deku basically tried to find an enchantment to actually do that, which he wasn't able to find for some reason. He asked them if they had some, which they said no. The only places that actually sells them in paper form are places that are specialized in those. So like Magic School and stuff like that. Which she points out that in the Volcano Kingdom, there is actually one of those. It's actually the third biggest school of magic on the continent. They should have some there. So then they ask him why he wants them, which he basically shows his two bracelets and say that even with those, he's basically still emitting aura, which they ask him to remove them to basically see how strong he has an aura, which he does, and everyone in the kingdom basically feels that, oh, something just kind of popped up. Because with the amount of aura he has, even people who aren't able to sense it normally actually knows that he's there. That's why he basically needs those. Because he is an abnormal. Like, on the entire continent, except for the gods and around, I would say, 32 people who are humanoids. There's not really anyone who has even the strength to rivalize against him normally. Then you have to think that he can add Dragon Force on top of everything, which makes it so that even the people that are able to fight against him normally would still be beaten down, so it's kind of hard. But at some point you'll see that yeah, it will start getting relevant for something. Mostly because he won't always be able to keep up when it comes to power. So right now he's basically using them just because, oh yeah, it's going to make stuff easy. Soon, well, later he's going to need to use it because it will be the only way for him to survive for a while. So after seeing the full extent of his power, well, of the aura he has, they tell him where to go find basically more bracelets. Bracelets that instead of being on the forearm are actually on the biceps, as well as some that would be on the legs, basically, to increase the amount that he has, to reduce the amount of aura that can come out, or to make it completely off. The person did say though that um, those that they have are probably just a bit weaker than that the ones he has right now. So it's going to help, but if he keeps increasing extremely fast, or that he triples in strength, they're not going to hold out and his aura will still come out. So he needs to find new ones ASAP. After that happened, he left and started going across the desert. And first thing he decided to do was actually, well, first, heat does affect him, but really not as much as anyone else. Like he can literally swim in lava because of the fire, lava dragon slayer powers, since it is one of the elements, one of the many elements. Basically, he has a resistance to practically everything except divine spells that normally don't have a dragon, demon, or god resistance for slayer power, or weapons that are actually created and were enchanted with a power to counter the resistance. So like a fire enchantment on a sword that's basically made to break the resistance. But yeah, so he can resist a lot of heat. One thing I would like to say to all of you, if someone is able has been keeping track of everything and noting everything that I was saying, like everything about the world that I said since the first part, if someone's been doing that, great freaking job, seriously, because I have many notebooks just for this one. Like, I have three big ones for everything in the story. Um, I had a small one that had multiple people in it that they could meet over the course of the story that I lost for some reason. I really cannot find it. Um, I have five other small ones that are basically for weapons, temples, locations, and other things like that that he will go to. And then I have another big one that basically has the races that I explained about, the special spells I explained about, and stuff like that. And basically, after I started my channel, after I started making video, I basically had already, before that, I had already started doing that because I was kind of making a world for a game that I wanted to play with someone else. That would basically be like Dungeons and Dragons, but instead of that, it's basically that we were setting it um, anywhere. Basically, it would always start back from the start where, well, we actually played once before. Um, well, actually, I did it by myself. Basically, I had, for that small world, created cards. I had created a board on a piece of cardboard that basically had you roll three dices, and basically depending on what you get, you check on what you happens to you and stuff like that. So yeah, I had created a small game with another person like that. I only played once by myself and it was freaking amazing. Never played it again because I kind of lost contact with the person I was supposed to play with. I basically threw all of those things in the trash because yeah, it's fun alone, but basically unless you're with the person directly, it's kind of impossible to play the game. Like the only reason I had fun alone was because it was the first time and basically it was all from luck anyway, so yeah. So this world had already some stuff created from before it, which I think the only person that knows about that is a guy named Gray Fullbuster on YouTube and on Discord. We are friends IRL, and yeah, so yeah, basically there is a lot to keep up. So if someone's been able to take note of everything, I tip my hat to you because wow, literally there's no other words. And if you did, or that you're able to keep up and remember everything from the what if, tell me in the comment section. It would be really amazing. So yeah, Deku left the kingdom and is basically unaffected by a lot of heat. And basically, there's nothing really happening to him. He's just walking. When he needs to, he eats. When he needs to, he drinks. He met two people with a caravan, and they actually only wanted water and some food, which Deku gave with pleasure. Um, he also tried to help their horses, which he did. Basically, they kind of got there trying to get to the kingdom where Deku arrived from. The problem is that they got lost, basically because of sandstorms and stuff like that. They don't know where it is anymore, which Deku pointed them in the direction, and they're basically going for that. They still have trouble with the thing because, yeah, they have two horses, but because of the sand, it's kind of hard to move anyway. So he continues all the way up to the oasis, which is basically a big forest surrounding a lake in the middle with a lot of monsters. Deku kind of decided that he was going straight through it to basically look for stuff. So, Deku enters basically every monster in that place aren't that high level. Like they do have a good level compared to normal people in this continent, but there's like only three monsters in the entire oasis that basically are close to Deku, which he actually meets one of them already. He basically sees a massive snake that looks at Deku, and the snake basically just kind of goes away. The snake is green, and yeah, basically the snake didn't even seem interested in Deku. He continued, got to the lake in the middle, looked underwater basically, and what he saw was a species that basically is like a plesiosaur, so aquatic dinosaur, basically the Loch Ness monster. Yes, um, I. Blah, blah. Okay, I'm going to try it again. Yes, I said the Loch Ness monster because, well, a plesiosaur is basically what um, researchers and other people basically thought it was after hearing people describe Nessie, the Loch Ness monster. And they say that the only thing that looks like that is a plesiosaur. So yeah, basically how that's why I'm explaining it. The plesiosaur just seemed to be sleeping in the at the bottom of the lake, which Deku decides to not bother him or her. Didn't decide on his sex, basically because yeah, he sees those monsters, but he's not attacking them. When passing around the lake and then continuing going across, basically going just before leaving basically the oasis on the other side, he sees the last one, a giant freaking spider that at first he was scared of, but he basically just saw that it's eating something. It's not human. He isn't bothered by it. Like it's basically just a big lizard. So yeah, he's not bothered by it, and he just leaves. After another amount of walking, basically he arrives to the place where the sand basically looks like they have wave in them, which Deku at first used a special type of magic that's basically called Detect Life. He doesn't use it often, simply because it actually uses. Well, basically, the way Detect Life works is that you activate it once, and it basically makes a bubble around you of around 40 to 50 meter, and it is activated until you mm, um, put it off, well, turn it off, and over time it drains your magic. So it's you launch a spell and then it starts draining you slowly by slowly. So he doesn't really do it often. Basically, he used it and he sends already multiple monsters close to him, basically under the sand. They're scorpions, and the size of them seems small for him because he sees small ones, bigger ones, smaller ones again, some that are in the middle. So he decided not to take a chance just because, yeah, he's trying to get to the other side as fast as possible. So he decided to use Earth and Wind spell at once to basically make a um well, the spell is called Ground Splitting Wind, which is basically sending a massive wind blade that basically over time as well absorbs sand and rocks and whatever inside of it, and basically over time just kind of uh, continues until it's just out of reach and it destroys itself, and it basically goes straight. So Deku basically just kind of went straight through every everything in front of him and just kind of flattened everything out, except when it was going down, that's still there, but at least he doesn't have to go up anything that much, except if he decides to go down. After that, he basically just started walking again, being careful not to awaken anything, which, when he arrives at the other side, he did sense massive scorpion looking monsters, because the way that Tech Life works is that in that bubble, he is able to see a light forming the entire body of the thing that is alive. So he sees small ones, then he sees massive ones, but he wasn't attacked. Probably because of the display of magic that basically showed every monsters that, yeah, don't mess with that guy. So, for the boiling river, when Deku arrives there, first thing Deku decided to think was to go above it to basically save himself time, until he just saw a some rocks basically coming out of the water in a way that you could actually walk on them to get to the other side. He isn't bothered by heat, water, or even the rapids. So he decided to just go do that first. If he falls, well, he'll just kind of go up and then get to the other side. And at first, he basically looks around it, see what would be the greatest pattern. And after around 2 minutes, he just decided on one and just kind of started running. And basically, over time, while running, mostly what happened was that he almost slipped. Well, he slipped multiple times. Um, well, while he was jumping, so he was still able to get to the other stones. When he got to the other side, he basically just kind of felt as if he was running literally for his life, even though there's no life in there, and that even if he fails, he wouldn't have any problems. So now we get to the love zone. In this one, Deku basically looks around um, in the 50-meter around him. He doesn't sense or see any life, basically. So Deku basically decides that firstly, he needs to find the kingdom, which should be easy because, well, it's basically a massive ball of energy with an entire kingdom inside of it, just floating around. But he's not able to see it from where he is. So he decides to just keep walking because he was supposed to be in a straight line anyway, so he should be okay. Um, Sorry, I have to pause for a bit. Okay, yeah, sorry. So, like I was saying, in the lava zone, keeping the live searching, live scan active, he basically sees that nothing around him has life. Like, there's not even any plants around him. So, Deku basically decides to go just forward for a while, since he knows that he should be looking straight at it. After a bit of walking, he sees a cave in one of the mountains, and basically just thinks, oh, a cave. There might be monsters and stuff like that inside. I might go check, and basically just goes for it. Because for some reason, he's being attracted to it. He doesn't know why, though. When he enters in it, firstly, he senses that there is life inside, but they only seem to be slimes, so okay, not so bad. He doesn't see them directly, so he cannot scan them, since he needs to actually see the being correctly. Like, if he goes on the top of the highest place that he can, or just flies up and decides to scan the entire town, everyone that is outside and seeable by him will be scanned, but anyone that is inside won't be scanned. So even with this magic already active, he sees a form of them, but he's not seeing them directly. So he decides to basically make a fire dragon fist in his hand to basically illuminate the place, and he decides to keep walking inside. After walking a while, he basically just feels as if it's weird. I've been walking straight and going up, but why do I feel as if I've turned? Reason for him thinking that is because of his internal map that he can do by basically walking through the place. And basically, he's looking at the map, and the map is telling him that he went up, started turning around, went down, started going back up, and started going around again, turning, but for him, he's just been walking straight. Like, not even just following the walls, he's literally just been walking straight. He knows there weren't any holes in the walls and stuff like that, and he's sure of it that he was going straight, as well as going straight up. He decides to go back by the same way to basically get out of there, which, while walking back, he basically looks at the map and weird. It's like he's not even in the same tunnel anymore. He's going somewhere else. He looks around himself and basically does his light balls that allow him to see, and basically sends them in all directions. Basically, they touch the wall, they cannot pass through it. He sends some and basically makes them multiply over time inside of it. And basically, at some point, he just makes one go and continues the same way. And he basically sees that even if he just sends them straight, they basically just turned around as if they're going in every direction. Something's wrong with the cave itself. So, at first, Deku decides that, okay, it's going to be a problem until, with one of the balls, he basically sees a skeletal remain. On the skeleton, he basically sees a small dagger, basically plunged where the heart should be, basically broken in the ribcage and holding it in place there. The skeleton doesn't even seem to have any clothes, um, items, or anything else except that, which he finds strange. That the only thing still there is a weapon and a skeleton. He doesn't even know if he can get to it, even. So he starts running, basically going straight, looking at the map, and basically just seeing how he's going all over the place. He decides to accelerate by putting electricity around himself and going uh, lightning dragon force to accelerate his speed even more. Then Sky Dragon to increase it even more. Then Shadow Dragon to increase it even more. And he's basically flying straight, and on the map, he's basically saying that he's passing at cross section with other places, um, basically coming down. It's as if he's literally upside down at some points for the map. And at some point, he decides to just stop because he's starting to hear something. He doesn't know what it is, but every, as much as he was advancing, the sounds were basically always there. But every time in the map he seems to be close to the middle of the place, there is a massive amount of sound. Low sounds, big sounds. He doesn't know what it is. At some point, Deku's been thinking and decide that if he cannot just get out by going straight, he's going to destroy the entire place. He knows that the kingdom was still far from where he is, so he's just thinking nobody will have a problem with that, and basically points it to the place where the sound comes from, and basically puts all of, well, the elements that he's using right now, lightning, sky, and shadow, and basically sends a massive amount of magic to basically try and destroy the walls as well as whatever is making the sound, which basically doesn't do anything. Like, the walls kind of didn't even crack. All of that magic just kind of went straight, and it's as if the walls nullified it. He was starting to be weirded out a bit, because he knows he can just teleport out if he needs to, but he doesn't want to. He wants to try and find out what the deal is with this place. So he looks back in front of him and he's thinking, why would me only going straight always seem to be changing? So he decides to do something a bit dumb, but at the same time pretty intelligent. And he uses the time stop skill that stops time for 10 seconds and basically goes straight through the tunnel. And on both sides, it basically only has like 10 meters out of the light, and then it's, well, the wall. He's basically stuck in a bubble. When he's moving around, the entire thing is basically shifting, basically keeping him inside. And there's probably or a lot more people there, or something's wrong with the place. So he, after the time um, stop use being effective, he decides that he needs to destroy this place. He could just teleport out, but if he leaves, other people might just get in. And if the thing is capable of changing how it is, he can't just teleport out and then destroy the entrance. It might be able to recover that. He needs to destroy the entire place fully. Because literally, except at the entrance that he felt some slimes, right now he doesn't feel anything except sometimes it's as if something was just kind of poking through the um well the uh, visible life scan. So he knows there's something in the middle. He just doesn't know what it is. Even if he's stuck to the wall, it's just if it's out of reach. So he decided to do basically something that was even dumber than the time skip, because at least the time skip was useful to find something, but he could have kept it for something else. This might not even work. What I mean by that is that he decided to turn dragon with the 20 time multiplier. Since a dragon is big and that he has 3 dragon force active, they add up to make a 50 time power boost. And he basically tries to use every spell he has at once, well, spell that can destroy, and just launch it straight at the wall. This time compared to the last one. Yes, it has more power behind it, with a bigger multiplier, but it's basically every element that Deku controls, those that fight against one another, as well as those that can combine with the others to basically make the spell more powerful. Basically, it was a full blast of creation and destruction at the same time, and compared to just 3 elements, it basically passed right through it, but at some point it just stopped. Like, it hit something. But, yeah. But now there's a hole in the wall. And he turned back into human form and went straight in. Like, he didn't even wait for that. When he arrived in the middle, basically over time, getting closer, he basically started feeling more and more mass in the live scan. And when arriving in the middle, what he sees is a giant crystal with a massive heart in the middle. Basically, like, um, well, slimes in this world, to be more precise, have a core. That basically the core is actually where the only organs he has is the heart. That thing can basically squash itself in the same way that a slime can, so that it can move around anywhere. But Some slime can actually harden that to basically go in hibernation. The crystal is extremely tough. It can be broken, but knowing that, Deku basically is looking at this giant heart and just kind of realize that he's in a slime. A pretty hard slime at that, since he used a massive amount of power to finally break through it, but he didn't even break through that crystal. Like, the slime, well, before entering, the mountain was probably bigger than, well, it was the biggest one that you could see. And if the entire thing is the slime is big. So, Deku, basically being intelligent, decided to try and just break the heart. That didn't work. And then he thought about it. If the heart isn't there, the slime dies, and the heart dies as well. You remember the special god skill he got in the last part? Yeah, he basically grabbed, well, touched the crystal and just said warp because he could use a teleportation spell as well, but warp would actually be able to rip it out as well compared to a teleportation spell that would try to teleport the entire mountain. So he basically got out of there with the heart, and after coming out, basically the entire mountain didn't move, but he heard a scream of something being hurt. What that is actually because, yes, the mountain was a slime. The thing is that the slime was fossilizing. It was still alive and just strong enough to basically force people to stay inside of it so that he could feed on them to basically get more energy, to basically force him to keep living. Because he was so big that he was literally using too much energy for himself survive. He was going in he was in hibernation to basically make himself survive, but over time he kind of fossilized, and yeah, what Deku did basically killed it off fully. Um, Now, if anyone else was stuck inside of it, yeah, they're gone, probably. The heart lost the crystal around it. Basically, once the heart died, the crystal kind of breaks with it. And Deku decided to just break it. He was impressed though that a slime was able to grow that big and massive. Like, how could that even be possible? He was thinking. After a while, he stopped thinking about it and just continued walking, but he remembers about it. A giant snake, and now this. He destroyed the heart to make sure that nothing could happen, but yeah. So, continuing on his walk to basically get to the kingdom, he basically sees that a lot of a lot of the volcanoes are basically spewing lava, and the more he gets close to where the city is supposed to be, the more they are volcanoes that are erupting. And he's thinking, why would they make a kingdom in that place? Because he knows about the dices, but he doesn't really think about them that much. Like Deku has two, just to put it out there. Deku has two of them. Well, of those. So yeah, he knows about them. So Deku basically just kind of looks around and at some point decides to actually go up to try and find the damn kingdom. So he basically went Sky Dragon and started flying to try and get a freaking view of the place, and he just realized the freaking size that it has. Like, he went freaking high. At some point he was able to see it, but he decided to keep going up to see the full size of it, and it was basically like 3 times the size of the desert. Yeah, the place is big. Just like for the desert though, the ground is uneven, like really uneven. At least this time it's hard. There's just the problem of having lava to move around of, but still. So Deku basically makes sure that he isn't well, he goes back down. He knows exactly where the kingdom is, and he actually starts going towards it a bit faster now. Because he's starting to have enough of this place. He has enough of just seeing volcanoes, lava, and other stuff like that. So he's basically just flying to that place. Getting there, he's basically just able to enter. Once he enters, he feels cool air because the protection around it basically makes it hospitable. So when he arrives in it, firstly, people actually from afar started seeing him arrive at some point. Yeah, like I was saying, people basically after a while, once he actually went up, basically, the barrier basically sent to the guards that something was there, which they basically use special types of magic to basically zoom in to see what it was, which they saw a kid basically flying and just starting to fly straight for the bubble. And a lot of people basically started seeing them, or him arriving, and were basically waiting because they're just seeing someone going at extremely fast and just accelerating towards the bubble. Which, from afar, basically anyone who doesn't have the magic to zoom in basically think it's a monster that's basically accelerating. So that's why most people are actually watching because they want to see a monster basically just flying at max speed, just knocking itself out on the bubble. But Deku basically arrived inside and just kind of stopped on the spot, making a gust of wind that was humongous, but didn't really bother anyone. Everyone was mostly surprised by the speed he had and the amount of, um, well, and how fast he stopped mostly. Because acceleration and deceleration creates force on your body. When you completely stop from a certain speed, your body takes the full force of all of that power all at once. So, yeah, Deku felt a lot of force on him, but he didn't really care. Most people were impressed by the speed he had, and some people were kind of thinking that it's bad because they thought that he was a monster and that they would be able to have some fun. But no, it was just deku. I'm going to pause for a bit, I have to do something. Be right back. Okay, sorry about that. So, once deku basically um, started yeah, okay, so found it. Once deku actually started going through um that's not even the right page. Okay, yeah, sorry, I wasn't even on the right page. I just changed where I was at, so I kind of had to close my book. Well, notebook, but yeah. So, after Deku basically entered abrupt, abrupt, bleh, abruptly, one of the guard asked him who he was and why he was here, which Deku started going down to basically talk with the person. And he basically explained who he was, um, King Izuku Midoriya, and that he was actually here for 3 reasons. To go to the magical school to basically ask for something, to go to the palace to go ask once again for something, and 3, that he wants to buy a map, well, not a map, but a crystal to teleport himself to the next kingdom as fast as possible, to not have to go back to the lava zone. It's not harming him, but he just really hates the place. Mostly because of the first thing that happened when he entered. He was basically stuck in there for like a day and a half. Oh yeah, he was stuck for a while in it. So, the guard basically told him where he could find the magic school. Then where he could find the kingdom, and then that if he wants a magic crystal of teleportation, the best bet was actually the magic school anyway. So Deku thanks him and decides to go. Okay, so Deku starts going there, and after a while he arrives there as well. He basically just kind of arrives there after like 30 minutes, basically flying through the city. Arriving there, the magicians actually felt the amount of magic that was coming from Deku and that he was exerting. So some of them actually came to wait outside, mostly teachers and some students. So when Deku arrived, they basically presented themselves and asked him why he was coming to this place. He explained the 2 reasons he was here for. Bracelets to reduce his aura, or the enchantment for them, as well as a teleporting crystal to the next kingdom, which they do have both, well, all of what he asks, but they tell him that for the crystals, the problem is that they have, well, the only way to for them to actually give you one is for the king to accept for them to give it. So you have to go talk to the king. He has to tell you, okay, I accept that you are able to buy one to this specific place. Then you can go to the magic school for them to actually give it to you. You still have to buy it. So basically, he asks for the bracelets first, and if he can buy the enchantment. He buys the enchantment as well as 4 more bracelets, and with them, he's back to not having any aura coming out of him. Um, his power is still huge because it doesn't actually reduce his power. Just reduce the amount of energy people feel from him. Then for the enchantment, I was looking for the name. Um, Deku basically asks if he can get it, which they basically tell him the price. He pays for it and he gets it. Like he gets a paper of it, which he then just looks over, then places in that one in his storage. Because now he has it in memory fully, so there's no way for him to forget it. So after that, he's going for the castle, which this is the place where it actually starts being a bit rough for him. And what I mean by that is actually that where he decided to go, basically, well, this place, the king is kind of a controlling dumbass, I should say. So the king kind of hates anyone who's not obeying to his rules or to what he says. He wants to be the superior one to everything, even going all the way to cheating to get what he wants. So yeah, he's going far. Um, yeah, so when Deku arrives there, he basically asks if he can talk to the king, one of the people that are actually supposed to. Well, one of the guard basically explains to Deku that the king isn't um, accessible right now, that there's a problem, and the king is actually trying to help for that. So Deku basically tells the guard why he's here, that he needs a book because he literally got the missions from like 3 other kingdoms to actually assemble them, for the sake, well, of getting them. So that person basically tells him where the book is, that it's in the library that the king doesn't even control for that. It's basically one of the rare things that he doesn't control in this place simply because he doesn't like books. So that's easy for Deku to get. He has the book. He has the 10th book. Then he also explains the secondary problem that he need to have the permission to get a pass, to get a crystal for him to get out of there. The guard tells him outright that might be difficult, which Deku asks what he means. Then the guy explains that, well, basically he looks around, makes sure that nobody's, well, that everybody kind of just nods at him, then starts looking around to make sure that the king or someone that actually want the king to stay doesn't listen on them. And then he explains that the king is a manipulative person that wants to control everything. He actually is trying to be able to control every kingdom, and he's failing miserably. Basically, he was able to take control of many small towns or village, and basically the people in there are basically being maltreated because they aren't listening to him correctly. So he basically used resources that he was able to find a way to get a lot of. And you remember these dice that I talked about in the start of the episode? Yeah, basically the guard explains to Deku that the king found, well, the kingdom actually was buying them for their own use to basically go on islands out of the continent to basically use them to try and get powerful gears and stuff. If monsters were summoned or stuff like that, well, they were just leaving them there on the small islands, which made it unproblematic because they were, before him, they were using islands that actually weren't inhabited. What he started doing when he got control was basically use a teleportation spell with the mage that trusts the king completely to basically send a handful of those dice on that village, town, or whatever to basically screw them over completely or destroy the whole place, because it's half and half good, half and half bad. Well, half good, half bad. The problem is you have more chance of getting bad rolls simply because of the way the dice are made. The way the dice fall mostly on bad rolls is actually because even though they have a same amount of faces that are good and the same amount that are bad, it's because you actually have around 15 faces on the entire dice that are good every time it switch, and only 5 that are good and 15 of them that are bad. So you pass more bad rolls over time, but only have 5 good rolls possible every second, every time that it changes. So the king basically uses that at his advantage to try and basically kill anyone that is in his way, or to make them basically fully controlled by him. Basically, like, if you actually listen to me, this will never happen again. So basically blackmailing them into submission. And everyone in the entire kingdom knows about it, and for some reason they're not able to talk to anyone else about it. It's as if they don't even hear the word bad when they talk about that king. When someone is outside of the kingdom. So Deku basically looks around and asks him where those dice are, which the guy tells him that the king used a bag and basically asked someone to enchant it to put every dice in it. So Deku basically asks him, where is the king? And is there anyone that would be able to take the place of the king if he was to get, let's say, disappear? Which the guy tells him that he doesn't know any magic. Well, the king doesn't know any magic. The only thing he has is the dice, and he only uses them to basically threaten people. The guy has a great physical strength. He's basically in the high class, but only in his strength stats. Everything else is basically under average. So the guy basically tells him that if he were to die or disappear, the king has a daughter that was actually um the word is well, that only stayed with her mother, basically. Like, she didn't have the influence of her father in raising it and raising her, so she should be fine. And everyone knows that if the king disappears by and then basically um, making sign with his fingers, just say disappear by an unknown event, nobody would say anything and would let her take place. So Deku basically goes to where the king is and presents himself as King Izuku Midoriya. The king basically tells him that, oh, I've heard about you. You're the abnormal from the weakest continent. So, how does it feel being in a territory with a lot of people stronger than you? Don't worry, nobody's going to harm you. Which Deku basically says, oh, I know nobody's going to harm me here. I'm way too strong for that. Which the king basically laughs a bit. And four of the people that actually go with whatever the king says um, basically tell Deku that the king is the strongest one. He has the capacity to actually do what most people cannot, and blah blah blah. Which Deku basically says, I don't care. I'm strong. I won't let myself be walled on by someone else who is weaker than me. Which the mage, which is in the group, um, well, the kingdom mage that think that this king is perfectly fine to rule, basically tries to scan Deku and is fully unable to. Like, it's basically saying error at that point because of how much power Deku has over the magician of the kingdom, which he says he's unreadable. Then the king basically just looks at Deku and says, what do you want? Which Deku says, I want to be able to leave this place by buying a crystal for the next kingdom. Which the king says, I don't think so. Um, I decided to outlaw them about 2 days ago. Nobody should be able to use them here. It's a bad idea. Basically just saying that, oh yeah, nobody should leave once they enter. Which Deku basically looks at him and says, "You know, I've come here to actually just bargain with you. If that doesn't happen, there's going to be a problem, and it's not going to be for me." Everyone that hates the king basically looks at who Deku is and basically think he's not going to be able to do anything. The king is way too strong, and he has the dices. Which the king basically grabs one, trying to act as if, well, trying to make himself as if Deku wasn't able to see him. Deku is able to see. He is part dragon now, thanks to dragon slayer power. So, Deku basically doesn't use the skill, but use magic to stop time. And basically, the way he does it is when the king throws the dice, Deku basically waits until it's just over the ground and basically switches it to a good side that would arrive up and basically kind of cheats it like this. He's not the one who threw the dice, and he still let it kind of on the well, he kind of just places it as for if it stops like this, it's going to fall in a good one, and basically it kept rolling a bit, but still ended on a good one, right under Deku. And what that was basically a level up. Like, the dice just kind of made him level up outright, and Deku said, "Hey, I leveled up. Thanks. I don't know what you did, but that's good." With the king basically just looking at him like, "What? Damn dice must be broken." Then goes to throw another one, and basically just grab 2 or 3 and do it. Once again, he used magic to stop time and basically do the same thing. This time, one of them arrived on a good, well, all of them arrive on bad rolls, but one is that a specific type of spell stops working for a while. It's gravity spells, so nothing is problematic. Second one is basically a summoning, but it only summons one small goblins, so it's basically getting squashed. The last one is the one that's a bit more dangerous. What happened was that it landed directly on a sorry like I was saying, it basically landed directly on a switching switching face. Sorry, I was looking for it, which basically shambles everyone in a 10-meter radius. So, but only the people, not the clothes, weapons, and stuff like that. Only the person. Deku basically looked at it before it activated, put everything that he had in his storage, and hoped for the best. And he switched place with the king, while the king was somewhere else. The king basically saw Deku with the bag, and Deku basically just said, "Wow, that was easy." The king started running at him to basically attack him, and he basically said, "Hey, I have the crown, I'm the king." Which the guy was mad, and then Deku just said, "New rule, if you attack me, you get pushed out." And basically just snapped his finger and used the warp god power to basically throw him as freaking far as possible. Literally, where he placed him was in the middle of the ocean. Yes, the guy will die there, but he doesn't really care. Which everyone basically just saw. Well, what Deku did was grab a dice, throw it. It landed under the guy, but before it was able to touch the ground and say he was gone, Deku basically grabbed it by stopping time, went back where he was, snapped to use the spell, and basically the moment where Deku said that, well, he said the line, he stopped time, he grabbed the dice, went back, and teleported the guy away. And everyone basically just saw it as, okay, yeah, the dice rolled in his favor. The king's not there anymore. Deku basically takes off everything and just uses his, his inventory spell to basically act as if he was putting back on everything that was his. After seeing the king disappear, a lot of people said, okay, so now his daughter is the one that's going to take the throne, which the wizard and the other three basically didn't argue. Actually, they just want the king, they don't freaking care how he acts. The new queen was basically a lot better, and she just told Deku that he can just get the stone right now, so he went and took it, basically with a permission slip, and he left. Is this last part is basically what happened to the king, okay? Deku left for the next kingdom and will basically be in there in the next part. But right now I'm going to explain what happened to the king that was teleported away by Deku. Deku sent him in the middle of the oceans, in a place that he is literally sure to die. To make sure that the guy cannot return. He had no clothes, no items, no nothing. He was fully nude when Deku teleported him. So yeah, the guy cannot survive. So the king was basically sent in the middle of the ocean. He was swimming for dear life until he passed away. Mostly because he stopped being able to try to stay afloat by swimming, so he started sinking and he drowned. So yeah, this part was supposed to be a 2-hour part, but it seems I was talking faster than what I thought. Hope you still liked it. Leave a like if you did. Just realized that I've been awake for 30 hours now by this point, and I feel fine. Yeah, sometimes I yawn, but yeah, I can still go. Don't worry, I'll go get some sleep soon. But yeah, so hoped you liked it. Leave a like if you did. Natsu out.